Oh, hey, all right. Now we're live. Now we are live. And I'm going to bring Darren in here. We were just talking about the prep we do before we start the live show. And just before Jarren? Your name is Jarren
I'll
now.
go with Jarren is fine. Yeah,
Jarren
yeah,
is fine.
it's close.
Watch, that's going to become the popular baby name in the next few years, and it's all going to be thanks to us.
Oh, yeah, that's it. We're such influencers.
Such influencers. Darren and I were talking about what we do prior to going live, and one of the big things is shutting down everything, turning off the background email clients, setting our Macs to do not disturb, physically going around the room. Physically going around the room and literally turning off the phones that are in here. I do that as well. But yeah, it's lots of prep that has to go in. And then the important thing is to remember to turn everything back on again when the show is over, which I often do. And then I'll hear from my dad, and he'll say, "I was trying to call you." I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I forgot to turn the phone back on."
Well, us Europeans, of course, we tend to turn our computers off when we're not using them. So every time we turn them on, it's a new session. Everything starts from scratch.
Yes,
that's
well,
it. Yeah.
I don't. I leave mine on all the time. But on the other hand, it's yeah, I would let it sleep, but I frequently, and you may do this too, actually, but I frequently need to remote into my home desktop or my work desktop, and letting them sleep can cause problems with that process.
Yeah. I don't tend to do that. My stuff is in the cloud, so I just have alternative methods of accessing. So there's this pool of data that I dive into from whichever machine I happen to be on. So I don't need to remotely jump onto one of my machines to access any data. I can do it from anywhere, and everything can be turned off. The only thing I have that is turned on every now and then is my NAS, so for media
Sure.
and so on. But that's on a timer as well, so that one just turns itself off overnight. So I'm not going to be watching movies in the middle of the night. So that turns off at night time. So there you go.
Unlike me,
Save power.
I often find myself sleeping to movies overnight. If you know what I mean.
Dangerous.
I'll start
Yeah.
something. Actually, more commonly, it's YouTube videos, like a YouTube channel. I save for the late night watching when I might be a little on the sleepy side. That's when I watch a lot of YouTube channels, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's not uncommon for me to fall asleep while watching them because a lot of the channels I watch, the videos are longer, 45 minutes to an hour plus.
Yeah,
So,
that's quite an investment in time, isn't it? Yeah, I tend to gravitate more towards the 10-20 minute vids.
mm,
So yeah, the longer ones can be a bit too long. Although there's some episodes that I really like, and I'll invest the time. So yeah, depends on what you're watching.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so getting ready for today's episode, just a quick rundown of the topic. Well, we traded emails the other day about what the topic is and what we're going to be discussing today. We got another very nice email from a listener, and I thought it would be yet another great topic to discuss on the show today. So we've got that. I have my answer to him. I know you have a very particular answer to him.
Potential, yeah.
Perhaps a different approach, anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
A different approach. And then you brought up something in your reply the other day about using, I think you mentioned specifically Apple Intelligence for part of his answer, but I used a couple of the other services
Hmm.
for to explore that part of the answer, and it was interesting the results I got. So I wanted to talk about those as well.
Ah, very
Uh,
good, very good.
so I think that would pretty much be a, a full show, you know,
Sounds
and
good.
then we have an essential app, a famous Darren Davies essential app.
Yes, I'm quickly running out of essential apps. I look through and I think, oh, have I mentioned that one before? Have I mentioned that one before? Oh dear.
Now, here's a question. I thought about this. Do we keep calling it essential app? So, anyone
Well, yeah,
listening,
good question.
if
Yeah.
you have a thought, do we call it essential apps? Are they essential apps, or are they just kind of like hot finds or something like that?
Well, yeah, because your last essential app on the last show, you said this isn't essential.
It's not
So
essential.
we're calling it an essential app, but it's not. It's an unessential essential app.
And that's what got me thinking about it. And then I was reading Linux Format, which is
Oh,
a
nice. Yeah,
British magazine, by the way, Future
yeah,
Publishing,
yeah.
great
Still
magazine if
going.
you're into Linux. And actually, they have a really nice section every month on Raspberry Pi issues, which is fair because it runs Linux, right? Um,
Yeah.
but they have a section in the back of the mag called, I think it's Hot Picks. Hot Picks. And I
Okay.
saw
Well,
that.
that
I'm like,
sounds.
well, can't use Hot Picks. I mean, I'd be stealing that
Well, it
directly from
could
Linux
sort of
Format.
steal it. Could sort of steal. Who'd
Could
know who he stole it from? Who'd know?
I don't need Future Publishing raining down on me uh, for stealing their. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I wasn't quite sold on Hot Picks either. But maybe there's a better answer for what to call it. We'll call it Essential App for now. Essential Finds,
Cool.
Essential App, Essential, I don't know, fun apps. We'll come up with something. If you're listening, not you won't be listening in the audio show. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is the behind the scenes part
It's
of the show,
the pre-show
the
show. Yeah.
pre-show show. If you are watching this on YouTube and you have an idea for what might be a great title for the essential app section, or a different title, or maybe we just call it essential app. Let me know. Let me know. Mike it from MacGuysOnly.com.
Cool.
All right. Well, how do you feel, sir? Are we ready to get started?
I feel surprisingly well. um, considering I've been ill. So yeah, pretty good.
Well, more specifically, I meant how do you feel about getting started?
Oh yes, that's on the cards. No problem at all. No problem at all.
Okay, excellent. Well, then why don't we do that? We did hear from our pal Brian, who often hangs out in the chat room. He said he's unfortunately going to be able to. He won't be able to join us today. Um, but yeah, yeah, we'll see him next time. We'll see him. Episode 450. Hey, 450 is next episode.
Oh, special.
We'd been much further along if we didn't have that break a few years ago. But yeah, you know,
Who's counting?
who's counting?
Actually, we are counting.
We are counting. We're literally counting. Um, I do like what I switched to a number of years ago when I switched to referring to these as seasons, or in your nomenclature, series. So we're in the well, this would be the 19th season for Mac as Only, which
Wow,
is yeah,
that's going
I know.
going as long as Doctor Who.
Right. Well, 65? No, 61. They just had the 61st anniversary of Doctor Who.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
last
how
fall.
old is the show actually? Is it?
Well,
Have we
it'll be
got another four?
62 this fall.
No, I mean for Macos only.
Oh, well, I mean, for Mac as Only. Well, that was 2006 when we started the show. 2006. So,
So
yeah.
just another 40 odd years. Yeah, to catch up.
Almost there. We're almost there. We'll get there. And yeah, I think what'll happen ultimately is we'll have to do some sort of regeneration if we're going to go that far.
Well, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll be like 80 or 90 years old with like walking sticks and so on,
I-
or a Zimmer frame by then.
In my day, we actually booted off of SSDs and they were fast and we liked it. Yeah, thanks, Gramps. It's all corneal implants now.
It's all molecular implants now. Yeah, yeah,
The
that's it.
Apple eye implant is yeah. Uh, okay, we'll get started with the show. Enough jocularity. Here we go. Ready? Okay. In 3, 2, 1. It's for Mac Eyes Only, episode number 449 for April 12th, 2025. A shortcut to efficiency. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Eyes Only, the show for the Mac community. The show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to discuss Mac OS and shortcuts, and maybe a few other things, is Darren Davies. Hey Darren, how you doing?
Hi there. I like the title. That's very good. It's always a surprise. I don't know what the titles are going to be, so it's great when you say, "Here's the title," and it really makes sense. Spot on.
Spot on with this one. And do remember, if you're joining us live, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat room right over here to my, well, it is to my right. So if you have any questions or comments as we move along, be sure to drop it in the chat room and we'll address it here on the show. Well, Darren, we have been having a ton of fun working our way through listener suggestions for show topics, and we have got another one this episode that comes from our pal Nick. And while Nick's question has a bit of complexity to it, which we'll get to in just a moment, I think our approach in answering Nick's question this time uh, won't be to provide Nick with a specific, concrete answer as such, but rather an overview of how he might approach a solution to his question. I think that's probably the best way to address this particular one. For no
Yeah,
other reason than we,
absolutely.
we don't have the details. We don't know specifically what needs to be done, but we'll get to all that in just a moment, though, because I have a little bit of self promotion to share up front here in the show, and that is Macstock 9. Yes, Macstock 9 is coming up, and it is seriously one of the best weekends of the year if you are into Macs, if you're into iPhones, if you're into iPads, basically all things Apple. It is 3 days of awesome talks, super, super useful workshops, and a chance to hang out with some of the nicest Apple fanatics on the planet, including the likes of Chuck Joyner, Allison Sheridan, Brett Terpstra, Jeff Gamet, and so many others that I just don't have time to name everybody right now, including our buddy Brian Flanagan Arthurs, who hangs out in our chat room nearly every episode. Whether you are a longtime Mac geek or you're just getting into the ecosystem, you're going to walk away with new ideas, you're going to walk away with new skills, and probably walk away with, no, certainly, you're going to walk away with a few new friends as well. So you can
Very
grab
good.
your 3D. So you can grab your 3-day pass for Macstock 9 at mac.conferenceandexpo.com. You can come hang out with us this summer. It's going to be taking place July 11th, 12th, and 13th, and it is going to be an awesome weekend. Oh. And if you have been meaning to go to Macstock, but you keep putting it off, I've got a little extra special incentive for you. You can use the code MacStock50 off, and you're going to save $50 on your weekend pass. So, with that coupon code in hand, don't miss out on the best weekend of the summer and come join us at Macstock. Okay,
That,
so,
that sounds great. I would love to do that, but
oh,
hopping over the pond at the moment is a bit tricky.
well, we won't get into that, but oh man, we would love to have you there, Darren. One of these years, we're going to get you to
One
Macstock.
day we'll
Yeah,
all meet up. One day,
yep.
yeah.
We'll get you to Macstock
Or we
one of
could
these years.
hold Backstock in the UK one day. Who knows?
Yeah, we may. Macstock's been around now 11 years. 11 years. This would be the 11th year. We had a little delay with COVID, where we did live streams only for 2 years. We had virtual Macstock for 2 years. Um, but yeah, so this is Macstock 9, the ninth in-person Macstock. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe Macstock 15 will be in the UK. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Who knows? Anything can happen in the next half hour. Well, the next 15 years.
In the next 15 years, exactly. Regenerations aside. Okay, moving on to our pal Nick. Nick wrote, have you ever thought of publishing a podcast on the different formats required for publishing text, photos, and videos on the net? In our case, he writes, we publish content for the website, for Facebook, and for email. I presume newsletters, right? Email newsletters. Each of those platforms have different layouts and each has different formats. Our Joomla website likes photos inserted as content up to 550 pixels in width. Facebook can handle a better resolution. Email is crazy, he says, because we have to handle the HTML content with photos and text, and also there are Adobe PDF layouts and Word files that need to be included in the message as well. So I presume in that case, and I didn't ask Nick about that, but I presume he means attachments. If he's sending out newsletters, perhaps he's linking to Word documents or he's linking to PDFs within the newsletter. That would be the better way to do it, maybe, than sending them as attachments. But if you have a need to send out, say, a sign up form or donation form or something like that, perhaps linking to that on your website would be the better way to do that. But I did have a little bit of an answer, especially as it comes to the images used on the site, um, because it's tricky. We said a moment ago that we don't have a very specific answer for Nick because we don't know his exact requirements. Um, and every website has different requirements. Every website says, oh, you should standardize on this size for the featured image, or you should standardize on this size for the hero image on every page, or what have you. So you need to know, or we would need to know, I guess, Nick's specific requirements, and then we could, directly address them. but I can talk about my requirements and how I've addressed them. And that's
Cool.
because I do deal with this every day myself. Uh, and in my case, the broad answer is to take advantage of shortcuts. And we've actually talked about this on the show before. And in fact, we talked about my first example that I'm going to mention here specifically on the show before. So I thought, Darren, we could maybe address Nick's question from this particular vantage point. You know, how do we solve these kind of
Absolutely.
problems?
Yeah. It
And
would be
then,
good for me as well because I'm just starting to get used to shortcuts. I used to be more doing this sort of thing with Automator or other ways and means, and shortcuts is the future, and Automator is still supported, but won't be for a huge amount of time more. So there's a transition there. So I'm learning myself. So shortcuts is quite new to me. So this is going to be great for me as well.
and I will fully admit I am not a shortcuts expert here. I can talk about my experiences with shortcuts and how I've used them specifically in my case. And I will also admit that shortcuts can be very frustrating to me. I am used to doing stuff in Automator, and some of the tools that are available in Automator just aren't there yet, or they don't seem to be there yet. And maybe I'm missing them, but they don't seem to be there in shortcuts. And so I have a certain level of frustration when it comes to doing things like renaming a file in place. There was a very easy Automator action to do that. And there does not seem to be a straightforward way to rename a file in place, specifically using the Finder's substitution feature. You know, when you batch rename files in the Finder, you have this ability to substitute. You can search for a string of text within a
Mm,
Finder file or a series of Finder files that you've selected, and when you batch rename them, you can substitute new text for that string of text that you searched for. You
yeah,
could do
and
that in
it's really easy
Automator.
to do with Automator. Yeah, exactly. It was really
Yeah,
easy to do in Automator. But
yeah, but it
I think
doesn't seem to
what
exist
I'm
in shortcuts.
finding, yeah, I think what I'm finding as I put my toe into the shortcuts waters that are quite new to me at the moment is that uh, they're less complex. Um, and they probably need to be because they're also cross-platform, whereas Automator isn't cross-platform for other devices, like for instance iPad and iPhone and so on. So you've got to be able to run these things on multiple systems rather than just only the Mac. So I can see why they're doing it,
Yeah,
but it looks like um, each action in shortcuts is quite limited. However, it looks like though that rather than having one big automator action, which is uh, uh, quite extensive, I found that breaks down into like 4 or 5 different shortcut actions that can be sploshed together in a way to build the equivalent of what the one automator action was. So it's just
yeah.
more steps, it seems. It's just getting used to that a different workflow, a different way of thinking a bit. Yeah, yeah.
A little bit different way of thinking, and you raise a good point. Automator, no, I'm sorry, Shortcuts has wonderful looping actions. Um, you know, if you're used to if then else type actions from programming, those type of actions exist within Shortcuts, and there is a loop action within Automator, but it doesn't work quite the same way. So if you are pulling in or ingesting a series of Finder files, um, because you set up your shortcut as a well, and this is one of the powers of shortcuts too, by the way, is you can set it up as a quick action within the Finder. So it's a simple checkbox. When you go into the information panel for the shortcut that you're building, you just check a box that says, this is a quick action. I want this quick action to be available in the Finder. And then you can select a file or series of files, right click, go to quick actions, and run that shortcut. It's great.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually,
You
that's
can.
what I use for the couple shortcuts I wanted to mention here real quick. Um, so the looping and the if then is actually pretty powerful, and I like that a lot. But then again, I hit my head against the wall when it comes to, like I said, simple things like renaming a file in place. Um, I have worked around it for the purpose of the shortcuts that I created and that I finally got working the way that I wanted them to work. Um,
Well done.
but yeah, but it always seemed a little bit more straightforward in Automator. And then on
Yes.
top of that, I've also found that some of um, well, what do they call them? In shortcuts, they call them actions, right? So some of the actions in shortcuts that Apple provides don't work right. And
Or they don't
one,
go as far as the automator actions, but yes.
I mean, literally don't work right. And specifically, I'm thinking of the
Harsh.
crop action. So when you want to crop an image, if you use
Okay.
Apple's provided crop action, it you think, okay, I've got this image that's 1200 by 600, and I want to crop it. I want to center crop it to 600 by 600. Every time I run that action, it scales the image first, thereby throwing off the aspect ratio of it, and then it
Oh,
crops it.
that's no good. Oh, right.
That's
Yeah,
that's what
that would be
happens to
bad.
me.
Oh dear.
Whereas if I use Pixelmator's crop action, it works perfectly. So
But then you have to have Pixelmator installed.
you have to have Pixelmator installed, and hey, maybe now that
Yeah.
Apple owns it, it'll be a free tool one of these days.
Well,
But
it could
um,
become part of an extension of what of all the image thing processing that macOS can do, and also iPhone and iPad can do as well. It could be ingested.
you could, yeah, exactly. So there are some weird frustrations with shortcuts, but like I said, um, some of the things are much easier to do with the older Automator, and some are easier to do in shortcuts. And unfortunately, some of that power of Automator, when it comes to file manipulation, as I mentioned, seems, and I'm going to emphasize seems, to be missing in shortcuts, or probably more accurately, I just don't know what I'm doing. And
That's the way I see it for myself. Yeah.
and Eric has proven me has proven that fact before that sometimes Mike just doesn't know what he's doing because Eric will say, "Now, come on, this is how you do it." And I'll say, "Oh, I had no idea." And some of that power in shortcuts comes from um, the right click or the control click. It's not terribly obvious sometimes that you can right click one of the variables within a shortcut action and get
To drop down some more. Yeah.
multiple other options to work with. And in some cases, that actually solved my problem. So there are, as with many things Apple, hidden features that until you discover them, you can sometimes feel like you're banging your head against the wall. Um, but, again, uh, not to emphasize this too heavily, but sometimes Google can be your friend. Sometimes
Oh
searching
yes.
for the type of thing that you want to do and seeing what you get in search results and seeing what kind of independent bloggers out there have created is a great way to kind of get started down a path.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and I'm going to talk about that shortly too, because I found a couple
Sure.
shortcuts that I think might be beneficial to Nick, and I didn't have to write them myself. So that was great. And then, as you alluded to, Darren, you can actually run a shortcut from within a shortcut. So if you have a series of single purpose shortcuts, you can call them
They can
from
call each
another
other. Yeah. Yeah. That's the power. Yeah. Yeah.
and kind of build this mega shortcut that calls all the others that you've developed. So there's a lot of power in it and a lot of
Oh
functionality that
yeah.
I feel as if I just haven't fully discovered yet. Um,
That's it. I'm just dipping my toe in myself. I'm finding that one of the best ways to learn anything to do with shortcuts, Uh, Hopefully they're documented quite well, because people that make shortcuts usually write some nice text in there to
They
say
do.
what each bit
They
does.
do. Yeah.
And the shortcuts system itself is quite nice. You click on the little eye next to each item, and it will tell you what that item specifically does.
Yep.
So it's pretty good. It's pretty straightforward to start learning. Um, but there's a couple of experts. I can't remember the name of the second one, but the first one definitely. Um, she's a shortcuts genius. So on the Twit
Rosemary
network,
Orchard.
it's Rosemary Orchard. You got
Yep.
it. You knew
Yeah.
exactly who I was talking about. There you
Yep.
go. Yeah. So she is a complete genius with shortcuts,
Total
and can
genius.
literally appear to solve any problem. I don't know how she does it. Sometimes she just thinks outside the box or in a slightly different way, and it's just choosing a different workflow. Or as Steve Jobs said, it's thinking different. Think different.
Think different. Yeah.
And then you'll discover a slightly different path to achieve what you want, rather than where you thought you were going, which takes you down the wrong angle. But she is fantastic. And there's also a guy, and I need to find out his name, um, who is very, very prolific on creating shortcuts. And I think his website has like 700 shortcuts.
Wow.
Um, so that allows you, and they're all free, of course. Fabulous resource. So you can pop onto his website, look at a shortcut, see how it's constructed, and learn how to create similar shortcuts. Because more often than not, he's already created what you're thinking of. So
Yes.
you can see one of these shortcuts and think, how did he approach this problem? And you look through it and you think, oh, of course, it all becomes clear.
And it okay, it really does. Um, and one, I wanted to mention, I can second that recommendation of Rosemary Orchard. I was very, very privileged to have Rosemary speak at Macstock a number of years ago. She gave a wonderful talk. She really, really knows her stuff. I believe she's written several books on the topic, and
You,
I was so lucky to have her speak there that year. But we also have another presenter at Macstock, and her name is Kirshen Sia. And Kirshen also is quite the expert at shortcuts and automator actions and things like that. And
cool.
she's going to be presenting again this summer, although not on shortcuts. So there you go. But yeah, that is a fantastic way to learn how to build new shortcuts yourself, is to do exactly what you suggested. Find a great resource like and I hope you can find his name so we can put a link in the show notes. But
So do I.
um, uh, find a great resource, download some samples that do what you want to do or do similar to what you want to do. And once you've downloaded those, once you have imported those into the Shortcuts app, you can edit them and see
That's
the
it.
steps
Make
that,
them exactly. Make them your own. Yeah, you can
yep,
make your own versions of everything that somebody else has made. It's
exactly.
great to not be starting from scratch, because it's always quite a daunting task to start with the blank page, and especially when you're scripting, even if it's visual scripting. I mean, Apple's
Yeah,
scripting tools are fabulous, but even if you've got a fabulous tool there to script with, and even if it's visual, you're still starting with a blank page and thinking, where do I start?
where do I start? Exactly. So having something to start with, something to borrow ideas from, is a great
That's it.
way
Yeah,
to learn how to build upon the greatness of others, right? And
indeed.
create the tool that ultimately will do what you need it to do. Now, in my case, I did, for this first example, I did actually lean upon Eric for the final solution.
Excellent.
I hit a wall. I wasn't quite sure where to go with it, and he offered a very simple, quick suggestion. I implemented that suggestion, and I have been using the shortcut not daily, but at least a couple times a week ever since. And this particular
Awesome.
shortcut I call PDF thumbnail. And
Okay.
specifically on on my Macs, it's called PDF thumbnail version 3, which is a little telling
Uh,
for
that
how many
means you
times
had
I've
two failures.
played around with it. And the reason I needed this or wanted this Let's put it that way. I didn't need it, right? There's always a way to work around this stuff. You could just do it the good old-fashioned manual way. But the reason I wanted this is because I regularly have clients who ask me to post their PDF newsletters to their websites. And in order to do that, I need a nice image of the newsletter's cover. And so for my client sites,
Yes,
and
perfect.
just to be consistent with the work I do for my clients, I've standardized on a maximum of 500 pixels wide. That's it. So whatever 8.5 by 11, which is our standard size
Your standard paper
paper
size, yeah.
here, a little different in the UK, but for our standard size, 8.5 by 11, I standardized on 500 pixels wide. The height will vary slightly from document to document, but I wanted the image to have the same aspect ratio as the cover of the newsletter. So I created a shortcut that allows me to right click a PDF uh, and then choose the shortcut that I've named PDF thumbnail or PDF thumbnail version 3. And then within seconds, the Mac spits out a JPEG of that PDF's cover that I can drop directly into
Perfect.
their site,
Ready to upload.
ready to upload. And so, using some of the things that we talked about, I opened it up here on the Mac and I just kind of wanted to run through the rough outline of how this particular shortcut works.
Excellent.
And shortcuts are very easy to follow. They're nice little blocks of directives that you literally stack on top of each other in order to create this workflow that goes
Yeah,
from
flow.
start
Yeah.
to finish, right? So, this particular shortcut, I wanted to interact with files in the Finder, and I wanted to be able to right click that file and choose from the context menu this shortcut and run it. And then I wanted the output of this shortcut to drop the final JPEG in the same folder as the PDF. So I started out with started the shortcut with get selected files in Finder. And if you don't know where to find these actions, over on the right under the list of actions, you can just start typing in what you're looking for. So you might type in the word Finder, for example, and then
Yeah.
the different actions that you can take from or with the files in the Finder will show up, and you can drag them over into your workflow. So get selected files from Finder, and up above that, there's another action that says receive images from quick actions. Now, that's set up under the information panel for the shortcut. Under details, I check the box for use as quick action, and I check the box for Finder. And that pretty much set up that initial action to say, okay, receive these images um, from from the Finder. Actually, what I did is I think I right clicked on, or I clicked on where it says receive images. I clicked on that, and then I could check images, just check
Yeah,
images,
yeah.
because
To get
that's
the
really
file type
yeah, file type,
correct.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
PDFs. I also I wanted this to work on a PDF, so I checked the box for PDFs. I didn't need it to work on any other
It's,
types of
your input
files
is
or
always going to be PDF. Yeah.
always going to be a PDF, so I could just check PDF. So receive images, and actually it says 18 more because I got a little lazy and I just left everything checked. But you could specify images, PDFs, whatever you want this shortcut to take an action or take action on. In this case, it's always going to be PDFs, so I could just check PDFs, right? And then, of course, it says input from quick actions because that's how I want to interact with this. I want to right click the PDF, I want to
Yeah.
go to quick actions, and I want to select PDF thumbnail. So, again, under the information panel, I chose use as quick action and then checked Finder. Um, so then get selected files from Finder. So, what I right clicked on, it's going to select or get those files from the Finder. The PDF I right click on. And then I have a repeat. And the reason I have a repeat, and this is where I got Eric's help, is because I wanted to select multiple PDFs in the Finder. I wanted to select not just
Yeah.
one, but maybe 2 or 5 or 10. Sometimes they give
Yeah.
me a whole bunch of newsletters they want posted. So I wanted to be able to select all the PDFs within this folder and generate the thumbnail of each of them all within one click. So I have a repeat with each item in file. In other words, I said get selected files from Finder, so repeat with each item in file. That's the repeat. That's the start of the repeat. Within the repeat, I have make a PDF from repeat item. That's where it got a little weird. I found that I had to include that because um, if I didn't include that, it was going to generate a thumbnail of every single page within the PDF. And I only wanted the cover.
Yeah, you
So,
only wanted the cover, yeah.
so step one was to make a PDF from the file I selected, which seems weird, but that's what I had to do. And
Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
I within that you can show more. And I said, as I'm creating the PDF from this item, I want to be just a single page, and I want it to be page one. That's
Yeah.
it. So it's gonna make this PDF. It's gonna make the PDF from page one of the file I've selected, and then it's gonna move on, and it's gonna move on to the step that is make a JPEG image from the PDF,
Yeah.
right? And then finally, it moves on to the resize action, and the resize
To,
action
yeah, to make sure it's 500 pixels, yeah.
is to resize the image to 500 pixels wide by auto height. So I leave it to auto height so that it'll keep the proper aspect ratio, but I want it to go down to 500 pixels.
Well, quick question, Mike,
Yeah,
on that. On the image side of things, when you're doing the resize, because I know that in Automator you have lots of extensive things. You can even run little quartz filters, you can run sharpens, you can
sure.
do all sorts of things.
Yeah,
Um, I presume that it's simpler on shortcuts and it only does that one action. And if you did want to sharpen, you'd have to add another action to sharpen the output of that first, that
yeah.
sort of thing, and string them together. Is that how it would work with shortcuts?
That appears to me how it works in shortcuts. Shortcuts tends to break, and that's where I find shortcuts to be a little behind Automator, in that Automator
Yeah.
seemed to have more powerful actions, in that,
Yes.
like you said, you could do multiple things within a single action.
Yeah.
And with shortcuts, it appears as if you really need to break things down step by step by step by step.
Into
So
smaller steps. Yeah.
smaller steps, exactly. So yes, that does appear to be the case to me. Now, I wasn't doing anything like that this time, but yes, if I wanted to convert it to black and white, or I wanted to do something else with the image, I would probably do it after. Well, no, I probably would do it before the resizing, quite frankly.
Before the resize. Yeah. Yeah. It's good
Yeah.
to choose the right order, isn't it? Yeah.
Now, I will say that in the make step, the make action, so I have it set up as make JPEG image from PDF. Now, I can set it up to make. There's just a ton of stuff. I right clicked on it just now. Again, I right clicked on it. I could make a PNG. I could make a TIFF. I could make
Yeah. Yeah.
um, an HEIF. High efficiency image. I could make a Windows bitmap. There's all kinds of choices in there. In my
uh,
particular case, I did select JPEG image. And then if you show more, there is, and maybe this is what you're referring to, there is an option to keep it as RGB, which is what you would want for the web, RGB.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
or within this, I could also say gray. So I can convert it to grayscale in this
Okay.
make step. But
Without
if you
another
want to apply
step.
other filters, then you may need to do that separately.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so That's the gist of it. Repeat with each item. Make a. I had to do the make PDF so that it would only do the first page, and then from that single page PDF, I would make a JPEG image. I would resize that image to 500 pixels wide by automatic height, and then I would repeat. So for every item selected in the Finder, whether it's one or whether it's five, it would repeat that many times until it hits the end. And then the very last thing is to stop and output. So that's actually an action within Shortcut. Stop and output the repeat results. And that's it. It's a very simple shortcut. And the part of it that Eric helped me with was trying to figure out how to do just the first page. And that's where we figured out that yeah, we need to make a PDF from the PDF. Sounds weird, but that's what we had to
No, no,
do.
absolutely. No, it sounds straightforward. It sounds like this. That's what I would expect as well, actually, to prep
Yeah,
the PDF in the way you want it first before you convert it, rather than try to do it after you've done some conversions.
exactly. So again, simple. And now at any time from any of my Macs, because these do sync via iCloud, from any of my Macs, I can right click a PDF, choose the quick action PDF thumbnail, and boom, within
Yeah,
split
yeah.
seconds, I've got this thumbnail that I can then upload on the website. I will note one thing though: if you do have it set up as it will sync, your shortcuts will sync from Mac to Mac, by the way. But if you do have it set up as a quick action on one Mac, that does not that particular aspect of the shortcut does not sync from Mac to Mac. So if you find that in my case, PDF thumbnail is missing from the quick actions folder, open up the
Yeah,
shortcuts
yeah,
app, click to edit the shortcut, and make sure under the information panel that you reselect use as quick action, and then it will make that
yeah.
active on that particular Mac.
I think there is a setting in settings as well under actions, which on a Mac that has your shortcut synced to it but not enabled as a quick action yet, you can just go into that list of actions and pull the slider across to say enable this as a quick action
Oh
on this
yes,
machine
that's
that's synced to. Yeah,
it's effectively the same thing. You're right. You're either
same
doing
thing
it
exactly.
through
Yeah, yeah.
you have to enable it though. It won't
Oh, I see. Right.
automatically enable as a quick action. So one way or the other, you either have to enable it by way of the Shortcuts app or you have to enable it by way of settings. That's a good point. That's a great tip
Yeah,
actually. Is if you don't see it, you can enable it through settings as well. Yeah,
yeah.
excellent.
There's
Excellent.
the
Um,
quick menu action controls. Yeah,
and then the next one I use all the time is not something that I'm going to detail all the steps in, but it's a little bit closer to what Nick was talking about, and that is that when creating blog posts for clients, it's nice to have a featured image. And a good size for that for the types of sites that I build for clients is 800 by 500. So I created a shortcut that allows me to right click any image that the client supplies me, select from the quick actions, resize to 800 by 500, and then that gives me a new image that I can drop directly into the blog post. So, um, one thing that Nick might do is create a series of shortcuts that allow you
yeah,
to select a single image and then generate all the different sizes that you need from that image
yeah.
automatically. Um, that would be that would be one way to do it. Just create a shortcut for each of the image sizes that you need. Now, uh, and this is where my lack of skill in shortcuts comes through. But very quickly before we started recording, I tried to create a master shortcut that I called resize to multiple dimensions. And within that shortcut, I attempted to call individual shortcuts that would resize an image to, let's say, 800 pixels wide or 1200 pixels wide or whatnot. I
Yeah,
created a bunch
yeah,
of little small shortcuts that do nothing but resize to a particular dimension. And I tried to call those from kind of um, this master shortcut with a repeat loop so that I could select, say, 10 images in a folder and have them all convert to 1200 pixels wide, 800 pixels wide, 500 pixels wide, et cetera, et cetera. And it seemed to run through all the shortcuts that I gave it, but it only output the last one in the list. So I'm not quite sure why that is, but the fact is you can call other shortcuts from a shortcut,
Yes.
but in the short time I had before we started recording, I couldn't figure out quite why it it only it only seemed to perform the last shortcut within the list. Not sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would do there is rather than calling shortcuts from other shortcuts, I'd if I was making a master shortcut to output lots of differently sized versions of images, I'd use a particular naming convention, and I'd repeat the gathering of the initial image again. So I'd duplicate the initial image for each different type of resize action. So I'd do use original image, resize it, then get the next part of the script to work on a duplicate of the original image, so it's not trying to work on the results of the previous one. So it's just doing the duplication side of things might help out with that, so that it only works on multiples of what's been duplicated, not the results of a previous input.
Interestingly, that was my first effort, and
Oh, well done!
that
Great minds
that
think
did
alike.
that yes,
Did it not work?
it didn't work the way I expected. So
I see. Yeah. Yes.
it's actually something I want to solve now. Now that I have this idea in my noggin, I actually want to solve it and figure this out, how we could do this. So I'm going to keep playing at it. Like I said, I was only
Yeah.
noodling
Yeah.
around with
Yeah.
it for about an hour before we started recording, and I just couldn't get it quite right. But I'm going to keep playing with it, and maybe we'll be able to talk about that in a future episode as well.
Yeah. That'd be
Um,
great.
but that's a couple ideas, Nick, as far as resizing images is concerned. Um, now, rather than try to reinvent the wheel for you, Nick, I actually found a couple. I mentioned this a moment ago. I found a couple pre created shortcuts out there by folks who had similar requirements. So perhaps one of these would be a great starting point toward creating your own unique shortcut for your specific needs. And the first of these is a shortcut from subtraction.com. And this particular shortcut is called ExactPic. One word, ExactPic. And the second one is from Beardy Guy Musings, and his shortcut is called Batch Resize. Beardy Guy,
Nice. Battery size.
both of these folks were or are actually web developers too. So it's a very similar situation to what you
Yeah,
have,
there's a
Nick.
crossover there. Yeah.
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 Beardy Guy Musing specifically mentioned the issue of getting images from clients and needing to resize them for his purposes for their websites. Um, and Batch Resize from Beardy Guy Musings actually has two different versions, one with fixed sizing plugged into the shortcut, and then he has one where it prompts for the size that you want as you're running the shortcut. So one of those may be a good solution to start with, and I'm going to link to both of those in this episode's show notes. Now, when we were trading emails about this earlier this week, Darren, you said you actually had a completely different approach, and you thought maybe rather than shortcuts, you might use.
Well, I was thinking back in the day of how I used to use folder actions,
Mm-hmm.
and but obviously I found out that there's a slight problemette there, because the way I used to enable them was with Automator. So I would
Mm.
create a script like we're suggesting here, the same sort of thing, but assign that to a folder as a folder action, which you can still do. So you can still do that in Automator. Um, Although it's all changed rather dramatically now. So uh, the old way of doing it did let you create a similar thing to what we've been discussing in shortcuts, but within Automator. Assign that as a folder action. So that meant that anything you dropped into that folder, if it was filtered in the correct way for the file input type that you wanted, so say for instance you want an image conversion and you filter on images, so anytime you drop an image into that folder, it would just work on the image because that's the thing you're filtering. Whereas if you drop something else into the folder, like a text file that was going to be your copy or something like that, then it would just ignore that bit. So the idea was that you could set up multiple folders for the type of media you'll be pushing out, one for the website, one for Instagram, etc., etc. And when you drop an image into that folder, that image will be processed in the correct way for that folder that you've dropped it into. So if you drop it into the Instagram pot, it'll make you Instagram media. If you drop it into the website pot, it'll make website media. So whichever folder or pot you dropped it into, it would be converted there. And that's quite nice because you end up with all of your media separated out into specifically named folders. So you have multiple copies of your images formatted in exactly the right way for each type of thing you want to use it for, but they're all separated out and they're all multiples. And you don't have to do anything clever then with the scripting. You can just do a normal script, but assign it to a folder. And then as you drag it in and drop it, so you're not doing anything more complicated than dragging and dropping a duplicate of the image you want into multiple folders, and then the rest is automatic. However, that all fails miserably because now, of course, folder actions have changed dramatically, and you don't necessarily use them with the lovely Automator actions that you used to be able to do. So I dug into this this morning, and the folder actions are available, but they now just run AppleScript. So this gets a whole lot more complicated now. So you can do it. You can do what I was suggesting, but you have to be a bit of a whiz with AppleScript. This is the downside. So you can find online examples. I mean, if you're of a more of a text-based scripting whiz, you can find, say for instance, an image resize AppleScript online quite easily, and then assign that as a folder action to several folders defined for each one of the things you want to prepare files for upload. And then you can take it one step further and you can assign multiple Apple scripts to a folder action, which then can prepare the other types of files. So if you drop an image into the folder, it'll prepare the image. But if you drop a bit of text into the folder, it needs to be formatted in a particular way. Say, for instance, it wants to output as a JSON file, for instance. Then you could drop a text file into that folder, and it'll create you a JSON file for the upload for that particular thing that the folder is pertaining to. This can all get quite complex, and I must confess I did go down a bit of a rabbit hole because I started to go a bit further into the weeds there and thinking, well, what can we do with potential AI or not just third-party AIs, but perhaps even Apple Intelligence as well. So I went well into the weeds on this as well, and I unfortunately came out covered in weeds a bit.
Burrs. So, you came out covered in burrs.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. Yeah. So it turns out that you can't yet, and the emphasis is on the word yet, you can't yet directly invoke Apple Intelligence actions from within shortcuts. But I think the word yet is quite telling there. I think sure we coming. Will be able to. Exactly. Yeah. I'm sure that's coming. And one of the things that could be very interesting there is when you can start to invoke Apple Intelligence features from a shortcut, you can do some very interesting things. So say, for instance, you have a particular writing style for your Instagram posts, but your website needs to be a lot more elaborate, more to the original, but just a concise version of something. So say, for instance, you can make a big a big bit of information and text and so on, and you can have different Apple Intelligence actions to rewrite your text for that specific type of thing you're uploading. So when you drop your file into a or onto a shortcut to prepare your Instagram posts, it will grab the image and prepare the image, but it'll also grab the text and rewrite it in a style for your Instagram upload, because they're usually shorter. But your website will shortcut will behave differently using Apple Intelligence. It will create something, text to upload, that's more appropriate for the website, and that's getting really quite into it. But
But
then I've discovered another even better way of doing it. But then that bypasses everything, and possibly everything to do with the Mac as well. So it's not necessarily a Mac only solution, but it's something very interesting.
and well, okay, so let's go back for a second. We'll talk about what you just described. You talked about dropping the images and text in, and then having it spit out something specific to Instagram, not only image wise, but also textually. In other words, writing
Yes,
for the audience, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And you talked about using Apple Intelligence for that, but the ability to do that from within a shortcut does not exist yet.
That's right. It doesn't exist yet.
Right. So I just wanted to emphasize that this will be, assuming it does come
Yes.
in the
I think
future,
it will
and
be
I think it
accessible through.
will.
Yeah, yeah. However, you can do it now. So, say for instance, if you were really brave and you were okay with scripting, using AppleScript as a text-based scripting language, you can uh, you can make a system call to use Apple Intelligence, or well, not. You might have to use an API for a third-party AI in that case, but you can trigger those actions as a folder action from, because it's AppleScript. You
Hmm.
can go a bit further, and you can actually trigger those now. But it's probably best, because that's way beyond my brain at the moment to think about how do I implement that, or what's the syntax for that, how do I make it work. It's probably better to wait for those services and features from Apple Intelligence to make its way into shortcuts directly, to make it accessible, because at the moment it can be a bit tricky to access those sort of things from an Apple script in a folder action.
Hmm.
But it is
Hmm.
possible. But
And
then
I guess
there's another way of doing all of this. So carry on. Sorry.
I was going to say, I guess all of what you just described is why I was curious to hear your solution for folder actions, because I was always under the impression that an automator action had to be written for that, and I presumed a shortcut, but it turns out no, neither of those work with it now. It needs to be an Apple script.
It, That's it. Yeah. In Automator, it used to be just how you defined it running. So if you added it as a Finder item, then that's how it would run. It would expect Finder items when you right click on them to pass to the script. But the other action was, or make this a folder action instead, or run the Automator script in a different way with a different trigger. There were various things you could trigger that on. Um, but now those folder actions have all gone to AppleScript, and Shortcuts is taking over. So that avenue has sort of like the door is closed on that avenue, and will probably close even more
Hmm.
in a few years' time when Automator is sunsetted to be taken over by Shortcuts. But I think by that time, I mean, we've got probably 2 or 3 years until then. I think by that time, Shortcuts will have got quite a lot more sophisticated as well, to cover an awful lot of the things that Automator can do now, and so on. So we'll find we're in the middle of a transition effectively. So it's always a bit rocky when you're in the middle of a transition.
Yeah. Now, you did mention yet another potential way to do this that kind of takes us out of the Apple ecosystem.
It
And I'm a
does.
little curious to hear this, because I have a feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, but I have a feeling this is going to dovetail very nically into what my suggestion was. But
Oh,
let's hear
it's interesting.
what your thoughts are on that.
Okay, okay. I just happened to be listening to another podcast a few days before you mentioned this subject for the show,
Mhm.
and lo and behold, they discussed exactly the same thing.
Of
Like,
course they did.
of course they did. They discussed preparing media, mixed media. So this is images and copy text. So writing and mainly those two things, but so it could be some other media as well. But preparing your original media. So say you did an original hero graphic, a really big, nice hero graphic, but you wanted that hero graphic to be prepared for various types of uploads. So your Insta
Mm-hmm.
upload, your Facebook upload, your social media, other social media uploads, and your website uploads, so on. They're all formatted in precise ways, as you were saying with images.
Yeah.
But also the text is important because the way you write the text for different um, types of upload situations is going to be very, very different. And also, the really, really tricky bit is what if you don't, if you're trying to automate the text side of things, especially if you involve AI, it can involve it can be tempted to go off into a strange tangent, and it may not sound like you wrote it yourself. So it might end up sounding robotic, or it might sound like, oh, hold on a minute, Darren didn't write this. He left his robot to do it for him while he was out.
Yeah, that's true.
So you, you
Yeah.
you want it to be in your style. So this goes really, really, really deep now. So, but this sort of thing requires you have an account with a third-party AI provider, because you're going to be uploading and customizing your own custom AI. So this
Mm.
is talking about like creating your own little mini AIs
Mm-hmm.
to live in your account, which you can then access, a little bit like a third-party file system in the cloud, where you tell it, oh, work on this file that I give you, but output this type of thing. And one of the things you can do with this with a custom AI like that is to output the text. Say, for instance, you give it a big load of text that won't be that big, but you want it not only concise to go on Instagram, but you also want it to follow your house Instagram style, i.e.,
Yep. Gotcha.
written in the same way you would write it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So in this example, this is getting, it's amazing that this actually works. But you can give the AI, you can create these little mini specific AIs for these functions if you've got an account. And you can give
Right.
them examples. So say you've already been doing this manually for ages. Say, for instance, you've been doing your Instagram posts yourself for ages, and you've got an example, or in fact, your own Instagram feed is the example of your writing because it's public.
Right.
So you can tell the AI to say, look at all the posts that I've done myself and write this text that I just now give you in the same style. So what it's then doing is it's not just doing the standard, oh, let's just analyze the text and cut it down, make it more concise, etc., or even just say, here's an average Instagram style that would be appropriate for this text to go onto that upload service, which is fair enough, but may not sound like it's come from you. This will go a step further, and it will look at all your past Instagram uploads that you've done yourself and say, I'm going to write this new Instagram post in the style of how Darren would write that post. And then you get some really, really, really spectacularly good output that you can barely tell. You could look at it and you think, hold on a minute, did I actually write that, or
Did
did a
actually.
machine write that? Who wrote this? And you can almost entirely, once you've got this down pat, there's a lot involved in doing it. It probably takes a few weeks to actually get into this setup and teaching and teaching the systems to create the media in the same way you would. But once you've done it, um, then all uploads to all services can be automatic. So you could drag one image into your AI and say, use these other sub AIs to create posts for Instagram, my website, my all my other things that I post to, and it will do everything it needs to do for each image for the images, and not only that, but it will actually do the upload itself to the site and actually post it for you with the
Wow.
text that is also created in your style. And you can say, "Oh, let me review it first," if you're a bit scared, or you can say, "Just go for it and upload them." So the whole process could not only create the images in the correct format for each type of upload, but also the text in the correct style and the correct format for each upload, and do the whole upload process as well so effectively one click, and you've uploaded to say 20 odd um, uh, yeah services and so on that all require different images and different writing styles and so on, and it's all done automatically in one click. You can save hours and hours, probably days of work to uh, just just creating these types of things. But it does require an account with a third-party AI, and it does require you're going outside the realms then. So there's one specific advantage to doing a lot of stuff if we can through Apple Intelligence, because although Apple Intelligence does, for instance, speak to ChatGPT, it doesn't pass your request directly from what you type to ChatGPT. It goes through Apple servers first. So the request effectively to ChatGPT is coming from Apple's own servers, not directly from you. So they're acting as an
Okay.
intermediary. So for privacy's point of view, it's fantastic. Um, and in the future, we might be able to do something, because you can craft um, a what are they called? When you are specifically prompt. You can craft a prompt. So your prompt writing is a particular skill. So you
It is.
can craft a prompt that you can essentially ask Siri to pass on to ChatGPT through either a shortcut or an Apple script. And that prompt can say, "Rewrite my text in this way," whatever I give you, and then potentially you'll get some media to upload. So you'd have to upload it yourself. So it wouldn't be quite as all-encompassing as the other solution, but at least it'll be entirely private. So whatever you ask it to do through Siri and ChatGPT won't require any payment to ChatGPT or any open account APIs or anything like that. It can just do it directly through Apple's own servers, rather than having to have an account and opening everything up to your third-party AIs. But that's an option, and I can tell you the source for that. It was a podcast, a business help podcast from Gillian Perkins. She does quite an exceptionally good business-focused podcast, and they covered exactly this. So she not only covers the steps of how to achieve that, but she's got an example, a set of files, example,
Prompts.
uh, exactly the type of prompts and what was used to do the training to create these AI um, components to do these little tasks for
Hmm.
you. But yeah, it all comes down to customizing and making a custom little AI agent to do these little tasks for you. So it's making AI agents. So this is getting a bit completely away from the Mac side of things. Um, but once you've done it, of course, and it lives on your AI provider of choice on their web site for you in your account, you can trigger that from anywhere, any machine, even from your phone. So if you take a picture and you want to make an Instagram post of that picture, you can trigger your AI action from there and say, take this data and uh, write a post in the style that I would write it with, but with this image, and just click go, and it will do the whole lot for you. So it's a bit involved, but
It is definitely a little involved, and what we'll do is that was a podcast, you said, right?
That was a podcast. Yeah,
Um,
Gillian Perkins. Yeah.
so what we'll do is we'll link to that episode, or hopefully that episode has a page we can link to. We'll link to
Yeah,
that
yeah, it
episode's
does. Yeah.
page so that you can tune into it and kind of dig into the nitty gritty of how to set up your own custom personalized AI for doing this sort of thing. And you
Yeah.
may want to do that. Now, I have so far, and I say so far because I don't know what the future will bring, but so far I have treated AI a little bit differently. I really don't like the idea of it taking over for me entirely. I really don't want to just say, here's what I want you to do, run with it, and oh yeah, by the way, make it sound like me. Um, if I want something to sound like me, I'm going to write it. But that's me. That's just kind of how I want to approach things. So the way I've always treated AI is as as just a supplementary tool. In other words, something that I can turn to. I can take a turn of phrase that I've written and say, give me a different way to say this. In other
Mm.
words, I treat it as like a third leg of the thesaurus dictionary and now AI in terms of tools when I'm writing something. Um,
Yeah.
and once in a while, I find that what it generates is pretty darn good, and I can pretty much use it exactly as is. But I try not to do that too much. Instead, what I try to
Mm.
do is
Yeah.
use what it generates as a suggestion and then go through and tweak it. And that's when I make it
Yeah.
sound
Sure. Yeah.
more like me,
You can
right?
always do that as well. So you can always just have one overarching bit of text
Yeah,
and say, can you rewrite this in a general style that would be suitable for Instagram, for instance? So
yeah.
not necessarily do it pretending to be you, but it's restyling the text, but in the correct format that is expected to go onto a site like that.
And since I knew you were going to be talking about this other way of doing it, of creating your own kind of personalized AI, I thought, well, how about if I approach this particular question the way that I would approach it? In other words, I don't want a personalized AI as such. I just kind of want to use it as a tool to supplement or augment what I'm already writing. So in in this scenario, I have text that I've written, right? I have a blog post, I have a news article, I have something that I've written. But to directly address Nick's question, how do I now disseminate the contents of that article in a way that's appropriate for the various outlets where I want to share it? So not being an AI prompt expert, I wrote the following prompt in ChatGPT. And I did this by way of this amazing Mac app called MacGPT. I know that they now have, I think they have their own ChatGPT app for the Mac at this point, but
Yes, they do.
um,
Yeah.
MacGPT is fantastic, and that's what I launch if I want to interact with ChatGPT. So I thought, all right, I'll fire up MacGPT, have a little interaction with ChatGPT, and I wrote the following prompt. I took some pre-written text, a blog post that I'd written in the past, and I said, "All right, here's what I wrote." And this may not be perfect, but here's what I wrote. For the following text, create multiple summaries that can be shared via social media. Create a version for Facebook, YouTube, Mastodon, and Blue Sky, taking into
Perfect.
account the character limits and acceptable lengths for each platform. Label each summary for the platform it corresponds to. That's it. That's all I wrote.
Very good.
And
So
then,
and you say you're not a prompt expert. That
not
was
a prompt
pretty damn
expert,
good.
but this was off the cuff, so I that's the prompt I wrote, and then beneath it I pasted the text from the blog post that I wanted to throw out there to the world. And obviously within seconds, if anyone has used ChatGPT or Gemini or Apple Intelligence, it's super super quick. So within seconds, ChatGPT created very unique new summaries based on the article. It
Mm.
labeled them for each platform, and in a fun little twist, it even inserted a few emoji.
Oh,
And
excellent.
then
Yeah.
beneath the text, it would include suggestions for hashtags where appropriate, as well as suggestions for where I should insert the link to the full
Oh,
article. So
that's
I'm like,
good.
that's
Wow.
fantastic. And then on top of that, ChatGPT also asked if I would like platform specific images or thumbnails to go with the summaries. So I thought that was really interesting. And now I did say yes to that just out of curiosity, and the results weren't that great, I'll be honest. What it did is it simply created an image that contained text from the article, and that
Ah, that's
text
no good.
was, yeah, it was styled in a way to draw the eye. So, in that aspect, it was good. But to be fair, I didn't point ChatGPT to the original article. I could have given it a link. I could have said, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
the um, take the following
Images in
text,
this style. Yeah.
take the following text and provide a link instead of pasting the text in. And if I had provided a link to the original post, then it would have seen the original photos that were part of that post, and it probably could have used those. I'm guessing could have used those as a basis for the new images that it wanted to create. So I'm not going to fault it for that. It was just more curiosity. It said, "Hey, do you want me to create these images?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And it didn't turn out to be anything that was very useful. But the actual uh, summations that it created for Mastodon, that it created for YouTube, that it created for Facebook, that it created
Yeah.
for
Sounds very
Blue Sky,
impressive.
was great. And what was really interesting is, and, well, actually, I'll talk about that in a second. What I did want to mention is, yes, this prompt could probably be improved. For example, Nick specifically mentioned an email newsletter. So I could have added, in addition to Mastodon and Blue Sky and YouTube, I could have said an email blast,
Mm,
and then it would
yeah.
have written another summary as if it was being sent via an email blast. So that's just an example of how I might have improved the prompt. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
of
one of the
course,
things you could do is that specifically in Siri, one of the commands you can use in Siri is to say ask ChatGPT. So you could do
mm-hmm,
this without any software at all. So you could potentially click on Siri where it opens to say type to Siri. You could then paste that expertly crafted prompt that you've made there
right, yeah.
into it, but precede it with the words "Ask ChatGPT," the
Mm,
following, and then Siri will go off and do the interaction with ChatGPT on your behalf and present it back in Siri's form, which you can then cut and paste from the Siri window. So you
yeah,
can do all of these things without having either a web input to enable AI or a specific app that you've downloaded that interacts with any AI. Many AIs are available. It doesn't have to be
yeah,
ChatGPT,
right, right.
but you can do these types of prompts where you're specifically asking a fairly complicated prompt that you'd never in a million years expect Siri to do anything with, but Siri will ask ChatGPT on your behalf if you ask it first. So if you say, "Ask ChatGPT this," um, it will directly go off and do it. So that's a direct command. Normally, if you ask Siri something highly complicated, it has to figure it out itself whether it's appropriate to ask ChatGPT that, and then it will ask you, "Would you like me to ask ChatGPT this question?" And then you can say yes or no. But if you type those words, "Ask ChatGPT," at the front of your Siri question, then Siri will just go straight to GPT to ask your prompt, the results of your prompt, and go through there. So you're not necessarily needing any software to do this.
Well, I'm laughing a little bit because you said if you ask Siri anything complex, and anytime I ask Siri anything more than what's the weather, and even that is sketchy, The answer is usually, here's what I found on the web. So,
Ah, it's
yeah,
got better. So now, well, at least on the Mac. So now it's going to detect that it can't provide the answer, and it will prompt you. Can I move this question on to someone who can provide the answer?
who can provide it? Since I'm dumb as a rock, do you mind if I pass this on to
Yeah,
something that can
I'll
answer
ask
it?
my friend. Yes,
Um,
indeed.
the
Oh, poor Siri.
poor Siri. So, in order to do that, I just wanted to um, clarify this. In order to do that, in order to say, ask ChatGPT, you do or do not need to have Apple Intelligence enabled on the Mac.
You do.
You do. Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify is that even though you preface it with Ask ChatGPT, the option to have
Yeah,
Apple Intelligence enabled needs to be on versus
yeah,
turning it off. Right. Okay.
yeah. Else it won't know what to do with it. It won't know what to do with the request.
Got it.
Yeah, that's it.
Got it. Okay. One other thing I thought this was interesting with ChatGPT that it came back with is it then asked me further questions to continue to refine the results. And one of
Yes.
the questions that it asked kind of ties into what you were talking about with the personalized AI. And I'm just going to quote directly from our friend ChatGPT. It said, it didn't say, do you want? It just said, want versions with different tone options like quirky, corporate, or casual, question mark? Or should I draft image captions or hashtags too? Well, it had already generated hashtags, so I don't know why it asked that. But um, I thought, well, sure, let's create a casual version,
Yeah, yeah.
and see what happens. Because I tend to write in a little bit more casual way. And that's on purpose. I do that
Mm,
specifically. I don't like if I'm interacting with uh, um, people through the Macstock newsletter, or I'm interacting with a blog post on for Mac as only, or what have you. Even with clients, even when I write emails to clients, I tend to write in a little bit more casual, laid back way or more friendly way, so that it doesn't feel so clinical or so technical, right? So
yeah, yeah.
I
Friendly.
said,
Yeah.
sure, create a casual version, and boom, it went through and created casual versions. Now, the benefit of those kind of leading questions from ChatGPT are that it can help refine the results to be closer to how you might write, even if it's not exactly how you might write. And then you
Mm,
can take those answers and you can refine them further without having to write from scratch. So
that's
again,
right.
that's
Yeah.
kind
It's
of how I use these tools.
yeah,
Is I don't want to take what it generates verbatim, but I might take suggestions from what it writes, or I might say, "Oh, that's a good sentence. I'm going to inject that into what I've already written and kind of work
yeah.
around that sentence." So that's kind of how
Well,
I have up until now, and how I plan to in the future use AI, ChatGPT. I don't use Gemini except what I'm going to talk about in just a moment. Um, I tend to use it, as I said, as a tool to augment what I'm already doing. Now, as you pointed out, could we use other services like Gemini or Apple Intelligence? Absolutely, sure you could. Just know that each service has a different character to it. And this is
indeed.
where I wanted to mention Gemini, because when I popped the exact same prompt into Gemini, the results were actually pretty good, but I'll admit they were not quite as friendly. They lacked the emoji. They did suggest hashtags were appropriate. I don't know why I'm saying they. Gemini did suggest hashtags were appropriate. But interestingly, and I did kind of like this, the biggest difference that I noticed was that ChatGPT recognized and overtly stated the character limit for each platform. So,
Oh, that's quite nice. That's very nice features.
yeah, for Mastodon, for example, it said parenthetically 500 character limit, right? And
Nice.
it did that for all of them. What's Blue Sky? 300?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
whatever it
think it is
was.
300. Yeah,
So
something like
for
that.
each platform in parentheses after the platform name, it stated very kind of clinically the character limit for that platform. Now, to be fair, that's the
Nice.
prompt I gave it. Stay within the character
Yeah.
limit for that platform. So it specifically stated, here's the character limit for that platform. But when it came to Gemini, instead of focusing on character limits, Gemini instead wrote, also parenthetically, for Mastodon, it wrote concise and technical, focus on workflow. While for
Oh,
Blue Sky, it wrote in parentheses, short and direct, focus on tips. So
that's
what
interesting.
was
That is
yeah what
very
was
interesting.
really interesting about it is that um, Gemini took into account the character of the platform's audience and what
Yes.
that audience expects from a post rather than just saying, okay,
Excellent.
I made what I wrote fit within the character limit. Instead, Gemini made what it wrote fit within the profile of the audience. I like that. I thought that
That's
was pretty
very
cool.
good. Very impressive. Very
Um,
impressive indeed.
so even though I found Gemini's answers to be not quite as friendly, that particular aspect of the results was maybe a bit more useful. Um, and going back to what I said about how I use AI, a little bit more useful from a learning perspective. In other words, if I opted to forego the use of Gemini or ChatGPT and actually write the summaries myself, then
Shock.
I would have, I know, shocking, shock.
Shocking.
I, I
Shocking.
I would have a better understanding for the style that I should be using for each of the social media platforms that I want to post to. Um, and then, of course, the one thing the Gemini interestingly did not offer to do for me is create images. Um, one final interesting note: in my original prompt, I actually misspelled a word, and
Oh, you should,
neither
it corrects
platform
itself for that. Yeah,
neither platform mentioned that I had misspelled a word in my original prompt, which
that's right. They're being nice. They're not going to pick you up on it. They're just going
they
to go with it and say,
they
I
they
know how
didn't
that's
they
spelled, so
didn't drag
don't
me
worry.
through
So
the
I'm not
mud
going to
for
tell you
misspelling the
off.
word.
That's it.
So there you go. Um, so
See,
that's kind of
AIs are not all bad.
yeah, they're not all bad. Yeah. So that's kind of two approaches. We've got Darren's approach,
Oh,
or
yes,
I guess
yes.
specifically it was Gillian Parkins, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Gillian Parkins' approach that Darren is has adopted, and that's to create or generate your own personalized AI that can,
Mm.
in turn, um, generate results that look and feel like you based on how you've trained it. And then there's the other approach where you just kind of use it more casually or
Or more
um,
generically, yeah,
more
or something like that.
generically
Yeah.
and get results, accept those results and massage them and make them into your own, you know.
Well, yeah, like you say, it's a lot easier to edit a pre-prepared post and kind of the right style to make it put your stamp on it, as it were.
Yeah,
It's much easier to edit that than start from scratch with the whole big thing that's not been processed at all, and or else you might as well do it all yourself
right,
and do it the
right,
long hard way.
right. The long hard way. And quite frankly, the I was unsure what was going to happen when I typed this prompt into ChatGPT and I got the results. I was unsure what the results were going to be. I knew what I wanted them to be, but I didn't know if I was going to get that in return. And
Well,
darn if I
that's it.
didn't.
I
And
think you've done a really good job there with that as a first prompt type thing. That's particularly good.
it turned out wonderfully. And I
Excellent.
love
Yeah.
how it broke it down into the different platforms. It wrote specifically for that platform. In the case of Gemini, it described the character of the audience of that platform, which then tells you why it wrote it in a certain way. And
Mm.
then, like I said, I did like the injection of emoji. In I don't throw a lot of emoji into what I write, but I did like that. I thought that was fun,
Yeah.
and and then the hashtags. The hashtags were amazing. Hashtag creation is it's so boring to me. I don't like doing it, and I'm not always sure what to do. What should the hashtags be on this post? And so to have those kind of suggestions, that's the type of thing I would probably copy and paste directly from
Absolutely.
ChatGPT
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Gemini or
Very
Apple
useful.
Intelligence. Is to take stuff like that I don't generally like to do myself, or I'm not always sure what they should be,
Mm.
and take that content and copy and paste it into the final result. But um,
And of course, the things you liked as the result of that prompt, you can put back into your original prompt to refine it.
yes,
So so then, for instance, if you did ask ChatGPT again, um, but this time including the type of response that you got from the other one, I've forgotten what the other one was, then it would generate the same sort of thing. So you can refine your prompt by taking the best bits of the prompt results that you get from various
yeah, that's true.
AIs.
That's true.
And one of the other really good ways of learning how to do, as they call it, prompt engineering, which is an interesting title, is actually now it's a job title. It's like, oh, little Jimmy, what would you like to be when you grow up? I want to be a prompt engineer.
We, Come on, let's be honest. Writing a prompt is really you're crafting
You're just
directions.
describing a problem.
You're
Exactly.
describing a problem. If you've ever come up with a hypothesis in science class way back in junior high,
Yeah,
it's the same type of thing.
yeah.
You're
It's similar to programming because if you can't
It is
break
similar to
down the
programming.
problem and you can't describe the problem, then you
Yeah,
will not be able to code the what results to get
exactly.
away, to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Unless you can describe the problem, which is what prompt engineering is, then you won't be able to program against it, and you won't be able to expect an AI to give you the correct response. But one of the best ways of doing it is actually asking an AI to write a prompt for you to ask an AI.
I know.
Uh,
Yes.
and you can go around
Yes.
in a couple of circles there, and you can even say to an AI that's given you a prompt to prompt itself, how could this prompt be improved? And it will
Hmm.
go through and try to
Hmm.
iterate and improve on its own prompt suggestions for itself to be prompted. And in that way, you also learn how to expand on how to ask an AI a question.
And while what we've been discussing today is more, we've been kind of working around Nick's question and how he might use some of these tools to improve his processes. Um,
Mm,
just a little side note on that, we're talking about AI to not only write prompts, but to maybe better your prompts in the future. That's kind of an odd way to say that, but to
yeah,
help you
I know
write
what you
better
mean. Yeah,
prompts in the future.
that's
Um,
right.
I sat in on a workshop this week, and I've done this thing myself actually, but I sat in on a workshop this week, and the host said that um, okay, this was a little meta because it was a workshop about a workshop. In other words, this
Awesome.
workshop, I sat in on this workshop to learn the behind the scenes of the workshop. Okay.
Excellent. I like it.
So part of the behind the scenes was how this host used AI tools. And I can't remember if he used multiple tools or just one in specific. I think it was ChatGPT that he used. But
Yeah.
he used it to not only help generate an outline for the workshop based on some criteria that he gave it. Okay, and that makes sense, but also to help find the gaps in the schedule for the workshop. In other words, what is he forgetting?
Nice. Yeah.
When you're teaching somebody something, the you know the topic, right? You know generally the topic quite well. If you're teaching
Yeah.
somebody how to use a Mac for the first time, you know how to use a Mac. You've been using a Mac for umpteen years. But now you're teaching
But you don't
somebody,
know what they need to know.
right? You are teaching somebody who's never used a Mac how to use one.
Where do you
And
start?
so, where do you start? What do
Yeah,
you make sure to include? What do you make sure not to include? What is too much information? What is too little information? That sort of thing.
that's it.
And
Yeah, it's a
so he
skill.
used ChatGPT to figure out where the gaps in knowledge might be, or where perhaps the
Nice.
outline went too far down a particular rabbit hole. And I thought that was a really interesting approach. And it's similar to my approach in that I don't want it to do the work for me, but I want it
No,
to help me fine tune the work that I've done.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like cats and dogs living together.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. There you go.
AIs and humans working together.
There you go. There you go. Anything else on either or any of these topics, Darren, that we wanted
Yeah,
to cover before we move on?
I just had a couple of things to add
Okay.
as an
Excellent.
adjunct to what you were saying. Really, it's not anything new. It's just additional to what you were saying.
Sure.
Um, now the Mac has, if you've enabled Apple Intelligence, of course, it has some nice writing tools, which
Mm-hmm.
currently can't be accessed through shortcuts, but I'm sure will be quite soon. So you'll be able to programmatically
Yeah.
prompt rewriting something in a style or with a bit more nuance to what's there at the moment. Because currently the writing tools, you're just choosing a few different things, but there is a custom button there where you can say, customize the sort of writing result you'd like.
Mm.
So one of the things you can do currently built in, it's a little bit by hand, but you can just in text edit, you can duplicate your text that you want to have in different styles, and just select it, go to the writing tools, and go down that list of what you were suggesting, but doing it in just a right click on a paragraph type situation where you're getting the Apple Intelligence to rewrite it for you. And one of the benefits of that is it doesn't go anywhere. So it gets processed through ChatGPT, but through Apple's own servers, so it's very private. So if you've got some text that you're working on and you don't want it to leak anywhere effectively, it's a processing of that text that is just a transaction between Apple's servers directly to you, and they're working as the middleman to ChatGPT. So those writing tools are available, and it's good to explore what's already there. And just as a simple test, you can have a play with those in text edit. You can just dump a bit of text in there, select some text, right click, go to the writing tools section, and explore what you can do there. It's quite interesting. That's going to expand, I'm sure, in capabilities to match similarly what you can do with third-party AIs. And also in the future, you'll be able to directly interface with those writing tools, but from within a shortcut, thereby extending what you can do with shortcuts and images. Yeah, I'm just guessing, or it's not based on any rumors or anything. It's just the way I can see it going. Because shortcuts is actively being developed, and as Apple Intelligence features come in, they get integrated into shortcuts. So at the moment, you can do some image playground stuff and so on, but it will get more in depth, and there's some cool stuff coming down the road there. So yes, there's built-in text tools to play with there. So I would encourage having a little play with those, especially because the whole thing is entirely private then as well. So that's good. And I did make one other discovery purely by accident.
The best discoveries are by accident, Darren.
The best, yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
I was getting a little perturbed with the Bing website. That's where I usually go to access the AI that I often use, which is Copilot.
Well, there's your problem.
Well, there you go. But yeah, I was having various bad results, not from Copilot itself. That's been really good, but just the overall website. So I thought, right, I'm going to change my landing page in Safari. I'm not going to land on Bing every time I open it now anymore, because it's just, it pushed me one step too far.
Yeah.
so
Lots
I
of ads.
changed it.
Lots of ads on
Well, there's
Microsoft.
that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of ads. And one of the downsides is that when you want to change settings that rely on a cookie, you can't have an ad blocker there. You have to turn that off. So you have to exempt them, which
Right.
then lets them do all sorts of things. And when I looked at how many trackers there were that I had to exempt, it was far too many for me to be very comfortable with. So I had a little look around, and I've been a big fan of DuckDuckGo for a while, and that's my default search
Hmm.
engine
Good search
anyway.
engine. Yeah.
So yeah, great. But I looked at their homepage to drop on, and there was a chat button there, and I thought, oh, what does that do? So I clicked on it, and lo and behold, they have their own AI, which is very interesting. Oh, sorry, I've got to have a little bit of a cough. My voice is going.
That's all right.
Oh, like, hopefully I muted that.
You did.
Excellent, good stuff. So this chat button on DuckDuckGo's homepage is rather interesting because it's an interface to various AIs. So you can choose your which AI you're interacting with
Mm.
from there, which is very good. And one of the really interesting things I found is that DuckDuckGo's servers themselves are acting as the intermediary. So you don't have to have an account for any of these AIs. You can put those
Interesting.
in if you want to as an optional thing. But in a similar way to what Apple does, you can put a request into DuckDuckGo's, it's hard to say, DuckDuckGo's AI interface, um, and the request goes to them first, and then to the AI, and then back through them as an intermediary. So it's more anonymized. So it's not they don't necessarily the third party AI you're chatting to doesn't know it's you, unless you want them to know it's you. So it's just a nice little interface there to various, and there's a drop down. I don't know if you're on the website now, but if you click on the chat button, there's a drop down to which AI you want to choose to interact with, and there's quite a few selections there, so you can try them
Nice.
uh, all from this one interface. And I think it's a really nice way um, to have a play with AI, completely unfazed by where the data's going, because it's anonymized through DuckDuckGo. So it's a really nice way to introduce yourself to uh, trying out some of these prompt ideas and trying out different AI engines like Claude and so on. So yeah, that's one of my tips is to go off to DuckDuckGo's website and click on the chat button and try their AI interface out because it's rather rather spiffing, as we say in the
Okay.
UK.
I like that. And we're seeing well, I mean, let's set aside the notable examples of Gemini and Copilot. Those naturally are going to be built into Edge and into Chrome, but
That's right.
more
Yeah.
of your third-party browsers are beginning to integrate AI into them. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Opera is doing it.
Firefox is
DuckDuckGo
doing it. Yeah. Well,
has
just
their own.
started.
Um, DuckDuckGo has their own browser,
It
and
does indeed.
then
Yeah.
Firefox is doing it. So all of the third-party browsers are building this in as well. And this is something that we've been discussing kind of casually for a little while now. Is what is the future of search engines? We used to
Wow.
think back in the 90s, we used to think the future of search engines was the categorization methods that Yahoo used.
Alta
Then
Vista.
the Alta Vista, yeah, and then Dogpile, and then the remember
Uh,
that one, Dogpile. Ask Jeeves, remember Ask Jeeves?
oh, that's the
So
one I was going to say. Ask Jeeves.
um,
Perfect.
then Google comes along, and we're like, oh wow, this is really the future
Wow.
of search engines. And now it's taken quite a few years, but we're up to the point now where how much do we actually need these search engines when we've got the AI tools built right into our browser that can provide the
Yeah.
answers to us that are pulled from the same resources that we might pull from if we were just doing a traditional organic, Google or DuckDuckGo search. So,
Well,
uh,
that's the fundamental question, isn't it? Because as humans, we just want to know the answer. Uh,
just want to know
we
the answer. Yeah.
we have been used to, especially in the 90s, we have been used to um, 200 results coming back, and to have to wade through 200 web pages to find the one answer we
Yeah.
wanted. It takes absolutely ages. Whereas now you can ask a direct question, and the AI goes through all of those web pages for you and finds the answer and presents it to you without you having to read any of them. Um,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
although
Yep.
there's slight issues with sometimes it seems that AIs don't really want to displease their humans, and they'll say, "Oh, I can't find an answer," but rather than
I'll just
saying
make
that,
one
they'll
up.
come back and say,
Yep.
"I'll make an answer up. That'll make them
Yep.
happy."
Yep. Yep. There's also there's some very serious issues, and some of the more serious issues are how smaller but still relevant sites are sometimes being left out of the picture, and you're not getting as broad of a viewpoint on a topic as maybe you should be getting when you're doing a
Yeah,
search. You're
yeah,
getting much more specific results based on the larger sites that might be out there, and you know, you're not like, for example, the links, the shortcut. Uh, uh, well, I'll just call them workflows. The shortcut workflows that I'm going to link to are actually from what I would call smaller websites, sites that
mm,
are not the Reddits of the world out there, and written by individuals, individual blog posts, people who put the time and effort into solving a particular problem, and they decided to write about it. And without digging further down into the search results as I was seeking these
yes,
out, I might not have found them. But I'm glad I did, because I think that they're actually much more relevant than what was perhaps suggested by Google's AI up at the top, or by the um, other organic search results that came up ahead of them. I think these are much
yeah,
more
yeah.
relevant. So it's tough, because when you're looking for something specific, if you know what you're looking for, I personally feel it's sometimes better to dig down a little bit further into the search results and find that
Well,
much
yeah,
more
yeah. I mean,
specific, more relevant
I,
answer.
I, I like that the often the AI results will show you what they where they found the answer from. So you can go
Correct.
and
Yeah.
confirm that, and
Yeah.
then you can also dig a bit deeper if you want to as well.
Yeah.
I think it's good overall for the industry because, as you say, it's difficult for small creators to surface.
Hmm.
And when someone does a traditional web search, they'll only look at the first 10 hits on the
Yeah.
website list before giving up.
Yep.
They won't look any further. Whereas your AI could look at 200 websites for you instead. So
Mm.
so
Good point.
rather than relying on uh, all the websites trying to battle to be in the top 10, they needn't do that anymore because the net is cast wider now, as it were. If you're searching through an AI to search the web on your behalf, it's doing a much more in-depth job than you would yourself, because I think most humans are just going to look at the first top 10 results, and if the answer they're looking for isn't in that list, they don't go any further, they stop. Whereas the AI won't stop, it will just carry on and look
So,
for smaller creators.
so do I hear you saying, Darren, that it might actually come back around full circle to writing good content?
Yes, it might actually do that. Indeed, yeah, that's right. And I think in future, instead of page views, as in
Yeah.
thinking that a human is viewing, it'll be the AI equivalent, like page scrapes
Mm.
or look-sees or
Interesting.
whatever people want to call them. But that could be the future way of monetizing websites, rather than relying on human eyeballs looking at the website. Just so long as a search request has been answered by that website, then there is some gain there for the website. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a human eye looking over the contents of the website for the website to be useful. And as you said, because it can cast its net a lot further, it doesn't rely on websites having to always get themselves up into that first top 10 list to be visible to make any difference, and that means it's not just up to the big website producers that get all the glory and all the money. It can be spread out a bit more to the smaller contributors out there. So I think it could be a good thing.
Yeah, as long as the various AI engines don't give preference, as long as they truly are being agnostic with the results that
Well,
they're
yes, no.
returning, and not giving a preference to, say, Reddit, and actually giving that good content a chance and letting it float to the top, then yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yep,
That's right.
absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, I think that's it. I think we've pretty much wrapped up this topic for Nick. Uh, Probably way more than he wanted to know, but
Yes, he probably didn't
and
want to know half of that.
I do hope something in this discussion was useful for him, uh, and I think it might be. I think this is probably the direction that he wants to look. Not necessarily AI, but definitely shortcuts, perhaps Automator,
Yeah,
and
some just
then
some automation principles.
the automation principles in general. Yes, exactly, and maybe with a little smattering of AI tossed in there on top of it, for sure. Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah, you can build it up. I mean, you can start with none and you just keep on adding little layers as you become more comfortable.
Something to build upon. But if you have a favorite tip or suggestion for optimizing images and text for the web, and you want to share it with others, you can drop me a line or leave a comment in the show notes for this episode at formaccguysonly.com and share your favorite tips, and we'll put them here on the show. Uh, Darren, I believe you mentioned that you have an essential app for this week.
Oh yes, of course, the essential app.
Yes.
Yes, well, my essential app is MakeMKV.
Oh, that was going to be one of my future picks. That's a great pick.
Oh, I see. Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Oh, yeah. As you'll probably be able to tell everyone what that does, is it allows you to use your traditional video media and extract that from DVD and Blu-rays, for instance,
Hmm.
and recompress that video, put it onto your server, so you can put it onto your home media server and send it to your TV to watch in comfort without having to get up and get a disc out and put it into a player and press the play button like an animal.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like an animal. There's a little bit of work involved. I'm going to let you talk
Oh
about that.
yes,
A little
oh
bit of work
yes.
involved, but it's a fantastic tool. I agree with you.
Yeah, so basically it scans your disk media, video disk media, and it will spit out an MKV file, which is sort of like a melting pot of different um, types of files inside it. So there's audio tracks and there's video tracks and there's subtitles and various other things in there. So
Hmm.
everything that makes up that disk will end up in this MKV file. And warning, warning about storage, these things can get pretty big.
Quite
So
big. Yes.
I mean, the last time I did it with one of my discs, it produced I think 35 to 40 gig file. Um, so that's one movie. But of course,
That's a
um,
Blu-ray.
what
That's a
that is
Blu-ray
that
we're
is a
talking about.
Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a
Yeah.
Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But that's not even a 4K Blu-ray. So
Yeah.
if you were talking even more extensively into a much higher level Blu-ray, then you'd be waving goodbye to like 80, 90 gigs, actually more than that, probably 100 gigs. Um, but one of the it's a stepping stone. So what you would generally do is you capture your disk contents with MKV.
Hmm.
If you have huge amounts of storage array, say you've got the world's largest NAS there sitting there doing nothing, you've got loads of space, you can just drop the MKV file on there and you can directly stream from that if you want to. There are various streamers and tools that will play those directly. In fact, it's built into the Mac as well. You can stream an MKV file directly to your Mac. However, most people haven't got that sort of storage to just leave it in that format. So what they generally do is they take the video stream and the audio stream that's inside the MKV file, and they'll produce a smaller, more compressed version, like an MP4 or something like that, from another package called Handbrake, which we have probably featured in an earlier show.
Yeah, we have.
Then that takes your extremely large MKV file. So in the example that I gave there, I had a 35 gig MKV file, which then compressed down to 2.5 gig. So that's the kind of size difference you get there. But that was just for the one part of the MKV. So you may want to extract other bits. So say, for instance, there's lots of making ofs, documentaries, and other bits and pieces that are part of the MKV. You can separately take those out and recompress those as well.
Right.
So MKV is just the general overall excellent package that will take your optical discs and put them into a container for you to do some future nice work on. But it's the pivotal thing that you need if you're going to do anything with your optical discs. And if you prefer buying physical media, the real thing, and you have those things on your shelves, then you will definitely need MKV to enjoy the digital version of the physical file.
And I'll just add on to this. A recent regular convert to MakeMKV, hadn't really needed it until fairly recently. I always used Handbrake, and then there's another package for the Mac that I use for ripping DVDs. Handbrake can rip a DVD, and then oh shoot, what's the name of the package? It doesn't matter. I'll cut that out. But Handbrake can be
fix it in post.
Handbrake can be used for ripping DVDs directly if you want to. The individual.
It's a bit tricky to get
off of.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Off of a DVD, but what Handbrake cannot do is rip content off a Blu-ray. And,
exactly. Yes.
Specifically, it's very difficult to rip content off a Blu-ray if the Blu-ray that you've purchased is region locked, and perhaps you purchased, I don't know, let's say episodes of a UK television series, and you purchased it on Blu-ray, and that Blu-ray is locked to that region, and you happen to be region A, and you want to watch these episodes. You need a tool like MakeMKV to do that. MakeMKV will allow you to make a full backup of that disk, any individual disk. You can make a complete backup of it that you can, as you pointed out, open up in, let's say, VLC. If you want to play it back, you can open that up and you can get the menus and you can play the individual episodes and the special features and all that stuff. Or MakeMKV will also allow you to sorry about that. MakeMKV will also allow you to rip the individual episodes, or in the case of a movie, the movie itself off of a disk without needing to back up the entire disk. So you can grab just the content that you want. It's a little difficult to identify it, but you can grab just the content that you want, and then once you have that content, use Handbrake to squish it down into a format that's a little bit easier to work with when you want to stream it back to your Mac or carry it around with you or what have you. So
that's it.
MakeMKV is great. I've been using it to not only back up full disks, which, like I said, can then be played on a Mac using something like VLC. You can't use the Mac's DVD player. You have to use something that can understand a Blu-ray disc. But
of course, no Macs come with any DVDs anymore. It just doesn't exist.
Well, they don't, but they still come with DVD.
You can add
player,
a
so
part. Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly, the app is still there. Much better than Microsoft, because Microsoft got rid of their MPEG-2 playback. So their DVD software built into Windows doesn't work anymore. They want you to pay extra for the privilege of playing back an MPEG-2 stream.
Microsoft has had a problem with playing DVDs ever since the beginning.
Absolutely, it's always been awful. But the Mac has allowed you to play back DVD content, uh, even years and years and years after DVDs have gone the way of Dodo a bit.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah,
Well,
it's also really good for things that because I buy digital content usually, but it's really good when you just can't find something. So
yes.
one of the things I've been looking for is the original. Oh, it's very old now. What date was it? I think it was 1978 or something like that. It's the original Battlestar Galactica film,
Oh, yeah.
which
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I just cannot find anywhere. So this saves you the issue. So you can often find you can order these rare types of things, say on a Region Zero disc or something like that, or a USA disc, which I can't play, of course. So this
Without
is
the
where
use of
MKV
Handbreaker
comes
Make
in.
MKV. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yes.
MKV comes to the rescue. You
Yep.
can buy your obscure disc, and you
Yep.
can produce yourself a pristine digital copy from that. Purely, you have to go down that route because the original film isn't available digitally anywhere. So, so there you go, MKV to the rescue.
And to be clear, we are not advocating digital piracy.
Oh
You
no, this is something I would buy. I'd buy the disc and rip
you need to
it.
be the owner of this content. And yes, I know the whole argument of the terminology owner and media like DVDs and Blu-rays, and in various parts of the world, it may actually be illegal to rip a disc. So it is important to follow the
Yeah,
local
yeah.
laws where you are located, and please buy the content. It's the only way that the creators are supported. So if it's something,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
if you want to stream it to your let's say Plex Media server, your Apple TV, or what have you, at least own the content, and even if you are ripping it later. So that's the only side note on that. But as far as obscure television shows, another good tip there is to visit your local library when they're having a book sale. Um, I went
Ah,
to I went to our local library. They were having one of their bag sales where, I mean, you get a bag and you stuff it full of whatever is on their tables, and it's like $5. You walk out of there with
that
a
sounds
bag
great.
full of books and what have you. Well, during their sale, they had 3 tables just filled with DVDs, Blu-rays, CDs, all
Wow.
this physical media content, a lot of it obscure, a lot of it things that you can't get anymore, but they are things that were either donated or that they had on the shelves and no longer need or want on their shelves. So that is another great resource. And you go there on a bag sale day like that, and I walked out with at least 15 DVDs and Blu-rays, and the rest of the bag was filled with books. So that's a great way to get some
That's
physical
fabulous.
media of content that might be difficult to find these days. So
Indeed.
excellent, excellent suggestion. Make MKV for the win. And as I think you kind of mentioned this before we started recording, as a little supplementary essential app, Handbrake is a good companion for that. So yeah,
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
will put a
Yeah.
link to. Oh, by the way, MakeMKV is not free as such. Let's clarify that too, Darren. Um, it,
Oh
it
yes, you got to buy
it
it. Really.
it's not free as such. However, it is free during the beta cycle, and it is currently in a beta cycle. So you need to go to the forums of MakeMKV, the support forums, and in there you will find the license key for the beta version of MakeMKV. You can plug that in. Um, if you care to donate to the project, there is a link to make the donation, and then you get a permanent key.
Excellent. Yes.
You get a
That
permanent
is,
key.
oh,
So
perfect. Yeah, that is a
that
really good idea to support the developers because
support the developers.
uh,
Yep.
this is very specific software that if it didn't exist, you wouldn't have a route to do anything with your digital media very easily.
No route to
Well,
do
not
it.
digital
And
media, your physical media. Yeah.
one final supplement to this essential app is that you do need an external Blu-ray player, right?
Indeed.
If
Yes.
if
I
you're
was
going
lucky.
to read
I
or
bought a
playback
really
discs,
nice
you need
one.
a Blu-ray player.
Exactly. I was really lucky. I bought a very nice one. It's styled to my iMac. It looks fabulous. It's
Nice.
an ultra slimline uh, slot loader. So
Oh, it's a slot
there's
loader. Interesting.
it's a slot loader. Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's super slimline. I think it's a Pioneer or something like that. But it's
Mm.
really really good, and it was specifically bought because, and this is something you may want to make sure of as well, um, is there's specific compatibility when you are writing a DVD, say for instance. Um, in At the time, it was not. It was part of the iWork suite. It was. Was it iDVD? One of the. Yes, I think it
iDVD.
was
Yeah.
iDVD
Yeah.
back in the day. There's specific compatibility that's needed for that, so I made sure that I bought a disc that covered all the compatibility needs of all the systems, so that it would be able to be writable on from any software.
Yep.
So you do need to have a little squirrel through to find them. The trouble is, when I looked again, because somebody I was going to recommend this disk, this drive to someone else,
It's
and I
hard to get
tried
them.
to look it up again. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I'd have to uh, look from scratch again for something very similar. But so yeah, they can be a bit tricky to find. But if you can find a lovely ultra slimline slot loading DVD writer that covers all the formats and all the compatibility for the Mac as well, then dive in. They're very useful. Mine was really great because it came with a load of discs. It came with something like 10 discs, writable discs, so I could use those as
Wow.
backups as well. So,
Oh, that's
so
great.
yeah, I almost got it free because the cost of the discs was the same as the cost of the drive. So effectively, I got a load of discs and a free drive with it.
And in my case, the reason I purchased the Blu-ray burner, which is what I have, obviously it
That's
reads
what
as
I have
well,
too. Yeah, yeah.
but I purchased the Blu-ray burner because it specifically had the capability to write to dual layer DVDs,
Yes,
which I
yes.
needed
Dual
that
layers. Yeah, yes,
capability
yes.
at that time. And I thought, well, I'll probably burn a Blu-ray or two at some point, and I don't think I ever did. But it is the one I have is a Blu-ray burner, and then it will do the dual layer DVDs, and then of course DVDs as well. So it was a wonderful addition, and to this day it still works great. So
Yeah,
I
works
was happy
perfectly.
I
Fully
purchased it,
supported
and
in macOS. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, works great, works great. Excellent pick. MakeMKV, and that is at MakeMKV.com. And Darren, with that said, that's going to do it for this episode of For Mac Guys Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, we do love to get your letters, so if you have a problem with your Mac, or maybe there's some tips you have for optimizing text and images for the web, be sure to leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaceye'sonly.com, or drop me a line, Mike at formaceye'sonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click that little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live. You can join the chat room and you can catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Hey, Darren, what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Sure, yeah. If someone wants to drop me a line, they can drop me a line at darren@formaceye'sonly.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.